Theresa May has resigned from Prime Minister of the UK and leader of the Conservative Party on June 7th after she faltered in renegotiating a Brexit deal with the UK Parliament. They had rejected all three of her proposals and had continued to move the Brexit deadline so that they could take part in the European Parliament elections. A successor will have taken her place by July. So basically, the British people voted her off the island like in Survivor.
On the 11th of April, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was arrested following his request for asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London being revoked. Assange had initially come to the embassy in 2012 after Sweden issued an international warrant for his arrest following rape accusations, which Assange claimed were only a means for him being extradited from Sweden to the United States to face justice for releasing sensitive U.S. government documents. One of the issues of tension that resulted in Assange's asylum being revoked was Assange purchasing a cat in 2016 named Michi, whom he claimed had been a gift from his children. To put it in other words, Assange had been living alone at the top of a stone tower with only a small animal to keep him company. He's like a crappier modern-day Rapunzel. Oh, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair so you can be tried for espionage.
On February 22nd, 2019, Israel launched their very first private-funded rocket mission to the moon that was launched in Florida. It took several weeks for it to get into the moon's orbit due to some technical difficulties. On April 11th, 2019, as it reached finally into the orbit of the moon, it suffered technical difficulties with its engine, and ultimately the rocket crashed on the surface of the moon on April 11th due to engine failure that shouldn't have happened, but due to the prolonged amount of time that it was trying to get into the orbit of the moon, this was bound to happen. The mission itself was mainly to take pictures and conduct experiments on the moon for future research of Israel's space program. This costed approximately $100 million. Pretty much it was, sadly, a failed attempt, but it was a good try and will hopefully one day bring an eventual redoing of it again, and hopefully it will succeed.
Several crashes of the Boeing 737 MAX model have occurred in these past few months. Boeing wanted the 737 MAX to operate at long ranges and developed larger engines for the wings. However, this would create an imbalance on the plane as they were too heavy. A sensor was developed to keep the plane in balance because of this, but instead would cause the planes to nosedive. Boeing insists on the issue being the system, while still failing to address the issue of the weight. Boy, I bet these guys failed their Pinewood Derby contests.
Like many other states in the nation, Washington has been subject to several measles outbreaks over the past couple of months. The most recent began on May 9th, but over the course of 2019, more than 81 measles cases have been reported statewide. The reason for the outbreaks here and across the country have been linked to the rising number of so-called anti-vaxxers who refuse to vaccinate their children for various reasons, but usually because they wrongfully believe that vaccines are harmful to their child or their development. Kids don't need any help spreading diseases around. They're a germ's paradise, poor hygiene habits, high population density, and not to mention they touch everything. I mean, you walk into any given preschool and you have an 80% chance of developing pink eye on the spot.
Despite the number of children outside the womb dying from poverty-related ailments, diseases, mass shootings, and now measles, the government has preoccupied itself with limiting the rights of women. In Georgia, they've banned abortion at 6 weeks. Ohio has banned it at 6 weeks. Louisiana has made it illegal to perform an abortion after the first instance of a fetal heartbeat. Missouri banned abortion after 8 weeks with no exceptions for incest and rape. And Alabama has passed legislation which would punish any doctor who performs any abortion at any stage with the single exception of a life-threatening emergency for the mother with up to life in prison.
On February 27th and 28th of 2019, in Hanoi, Vietnam, the second ever meeting between Trump and Kim Jong-un took place. It was to be negotiating on the terms of nuclear disarmament. During the talks, though, there couldn't have been any sort of agreement, as Trump said that that Kim Jong-un demanded that the sanctions that are placed on their country should be removed. But the North Korean foreign minister has reported saying that they only demanded 6 sanctions that were placed between the years of 2016 and 2017 to be removed.
The Alaskan Way Viaduct Replacement Tunnel, also known as Highway 99, is a bored highway in Seattle, Washington. The 2-mile double-decker tunnel carries a section of state route that goes under downtown Seattle from Soto in the south all the way up to Lake Union in the north. It is also the largest double-decker highway in its kind in the country. The Highway 99 tunnel goes from Seattle to the Alaskan Way, which was shut down in the longest major highway closure the Puget Sound region has ever seen. It was closed for 3 weeks on February 19th, but has been reopened and now serves as a direct route from Seattle from the stadium to
March 15th, there were 2 mass shootings in Christchurch, New Zealand. The shooter was 28 and charged with 40 counts of attempted murder as self-described white supremacists. At UNC, 2 died and 4 more were wounded after a gunman appeared to be looking for a specific target. He was 22 years old and taken down by students. At Denver High School, the shooters were 16 and 18, both of whom were students at the school and had taken handguns from their parents to commit the crime.
From January to February 2019, the Midwestern United States managed to get even colder than it normally is during the winter. Averages for these months were around -20 in certain areas, with some places even reaching lows of -50 degrees Fahrenheit. These kinds of frigid temperatures delayed hundreds of flights, blocked roads, and generally made winter pretty miserable for a sizable number of the population. The reason for these frigid conditions was due to something called the polar vortex, which climate scientists have linked to increasingly drastic weather conditions as a result of climate change. This winter was almost frigider than the kinds of handshakes you get after calling your teachers by their first names after you leave through that big long grad tunnel. Sorry, Ryan.
Does Seattle need a safe injection site? The cities of Federal Way, Bellevue, Renton, Kent, and Auburn all have passed ordinances banning such facilities in 2016. Executives from Seattle and King County were the first representatives of the major U.S. metropolitan area to formally recommend opening safe consumption sites. Opponents have pushed back, saying such sites enable illegal and harmful behavior. One has said, "I just don't believe the federal government should be overseeing injections of substance that we know that kill people, and that bridge too far."
In 2016, during the presidential elections, soon-to-be President Donald J. Trump announced that they would create a trade war between China and the United States. Trump started this thing when China started placing tariffs on U.S. goods that are being transported to China. So, in return, as soon as he was elected, in early 2017, he started placing sanctions on the Chinese goods. And it's basically been going back and forward between each other for the past 3 years. As of 2019, there were many tariffs have been placed on Chinese goods. Approximately $250 billion worth of Chinese goods has been tariffed.